Welcome back to HFO Multifamily Market Watch, your trusted source for information for apartment owners and investors. Multifamily Market Watch is presented by Pacific Exteriors Northwest, a contractor specializing in siding and exterior envelopes and delivering exceptional quality and service for over 30 years. And by Gantry Incorporated, the nation's largest independent mortgage banking firm.
Welcome back to Multifamily Market Watch. I'm Greg Frick, partner at HFO Investment Real Estate. And today we have back with us Erik Cole, Executive Director of the Revitalize Portland Committee. So thank you. We serve on this committee together, so I want to thank you for all your time and energy on, doing a lot of good work for this. And
yeah, well, thank you. I mean, your service on our board is really great, and we love having HFO as a member, and just appreciate it. We've got over 30 members now of companies and associations, so we're continuing to grow.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
No, and again, we need, we've had multiple economists on here kind of talking about, we all kind of know where we are today, but what is the plan to kind of move forward, and what are some of the levers that, you can use economically, politically, to try to kind of get this region kind of jump started again. So I thought we could talk a little bit today about, it's been in the paper a little bit, the Multnomah County supportive housing tax. It's in place. You can maybe shine some light on what's it intended to do, how it's structured. And then again, there's been talk about maybe trying to expand it and make some changes to it. So for people that aren't really familiar, they hear about the tax, but maybe they don't know the specific ones. I think it'd be great to kind of shine a light on that one.
No, happy to. So this is a Multnomah, it's a Multnomah County. Oh, it's actually a regional focus tax that was approved 5-6 years ago by the voters. It levies, and it was intended, the voters actually put it together, it's intended to fund homelessness services, addiction treatment, supportive services, not actual bricks and sticks, mortar.
So it's more
housing.
Supportive services. Okay, got it.
And honestly, coming from another place, I thought that was pretty innovative, because my experience in local government is that's really hard to fund those kinds of services. But it's a 1.5% tax on single income earners over $125,000 a year income tax, and then it's 3% if they're over $250,000 for a couple. I'm sorry, that's not 3%. I was doing the pre-K tax. It's also got a 1% tax on business profits. And all those funds go to Metro, and then Metro government distributes them to the 3 counties that are part of the catchment area.
So now there's talk now with this to extend this. Yeah. It's I think it was a 10-year when they passed it. It was a 10-year. So it's kind of coming up on its, I think it's the end of 2030, I think, or 2029. Yep. When it's supposed to sunset. And I know we've had some meetings with Metro as trying to get a kind of a gauge of where it's going to go, but kind of maybe shine some light on where that is right now.
So there's an effort. I think the political narrative, a lot of what we end up working on and affecting is a political narrative. And that political narrative has started to shift to say, okay, for all this money, what are we as taxpayers getting out of it? And, absent, some people over $25 million in income a year in Manhattan, these are effectively in Multnomah County, the highest effective tax rates in the country. So I think the impetus is what is actually being produced, what is happening from all this funding. And we've seen headline after headline of audits of, and the real answer in a lot of ways is we don't really know the outcomes. And so,
which is a little scary.
It's very scary. And we can get more into that. But I think so Metro and some interest in the community, I think we're trying to get ahead of, it does sunset in, you're right, 4 or 5 years. And the proposal that's kind of evolving is to put out to the voters an extension of the program with some level of tax reduction, but that is still not entirely set.
So reducing the rate.
Okay. I think you do some indexing it, to inflation, which is good. But the trade-off, the other thing Metro is proposing and pushing is to include the use, so the funds could then be used on housing construction, housing rehabilitation, because they're replacing, they did not renew the big municipal bond package that they did on affordable housing in the late 2018, 2019. So they're, the industry there, they say, is hurting. And so that's part of the impetus. I think that this is a balancing act. It's really confusing. It's hard to dig through it. But I think, the proposal on the table would extend this thing indefinitely. And, the other factor here, it's not just the SHS tax. We've also got the pre-K,
the kindergarten tax for all. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which that one is permanent. I mean, that one does not have a sunset, and it's got a higher tax rate. So
right. That's the one at 3. Exactly.
Exactly. So I think if if we looked at them, it's probably the one that's got a greater impact, but taken together, they are making a strong impact on the economy and on people's choices to stay or invest. So that proposal, if it comes up, would be on the ballot later this year. Metro is what you're meeting with Metro about was what would their package look like? And there's an engaged conversation happening between the business community, the affordable housing advocates, the homelessness advocates, and Metro Council.
So now, part of Revitalize Portland Coalition is a lot of, business groups and owners and things like that. We had that meeting. What are you hearing from those members, throughout your other connections throughout the city about kind of what their take is on maybe extending that tax or just in general, like you said, it's just not that tax. You've got a kind of a layer where we are now, high, in Multnomah County itself, city of Portland, higher tax rate than any other, city or state in the United States. What are you hearing, and kind of what's the pushback, or what's the, feeling on that?
I think we have seen some measured improvements over the last couple of years.
Right.
Now, our baseline was pretty low, to be honest. And so
we just had Mike Wilkerson in here.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
yes.
So I think, to your question, I don't think anybody knows what the overall plan is, because we don't really have leadership that's setting us on a trajectory with an overall plan. And I think about this like, if you're hiking on a muddy trail and you get a bunch of mud and sludge on your boots, it's hard to walk. This we've got a sludge happening. It's governmental sludge, but it's also just malaise where, permitting is really hard and difficult to get through. Obviously, there are market factors involved. But coupled with these taxes, you just have this environment that's not good for investment. And so we're still seeing people leave. We're still seeing people roll out. There are some, I think your market saw some little bit of positive signs at the end of last year. The commercial market, has flattened. I don't think we're going to see the vacancy rates going up much more. But that's also because most people that were going to make that big decision have made it.
Right.
Yeah. And we're seeing some tweaks and some good stuff to get some of the vacancies filled, particularly looking at small businesses and others. But there's not that overall leadership from, our electeds saying, here's the plan and here's all the things we need to lean into together to try to get some of these done, and, not necessarily incentivizing any new growth. Yes, they have a lot of big problems. We've got cleanup and triage problems to deal with. We've graffiti and trash and tents and camps and et cetera.
Which has gotten better compared.
It has.
It has. But like you said, we had a very low bar to start with.
That's right. That's right. And, I spent time in local government, and I just, you got to be able to walk, chew gum, talk, sing. You got to hit all these different pitches to make it all work. So I think that's where we need, I think if folks saw a greater kind of forward trajectory and plan where this was all adding up, that would help. Right now, they just see a lot of political infighting and a lot of confusion.
Yeah, especially in this, between the city, Multnomah County, Metro, and the state. We have so many layers of, and who's controlling what. From a public perspective, it's, we were telling Metro this, that, they don't understand if it's a Multnomah County, city, or it's all to them. It's just public services.
That's
and
right.
if it's not getting done and there's no accountability,
that's right.
It's really hard to take the leap of, we're going to extend this, even with a slight reduction.
Yeah.
How do we know it's going to be spent well? How do we know it's accountability? So.
Yeah. And Metro is talking about having greater governance and accountability measures on how the funds are used. If we're being honest, there's not many questions about Clackamas County or Washington County. It's really Multnomah County, the Joint Office of Homeless Services, that partnership with the city, which has been, was supposed to be this, efficiency.
Fractured at best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think, that's the question is, what is that governance going to look like? we need more transparency. They need a better data system. There's not a real, there's still not a shelter database that, a regular person can access and see when there's availability at night. Our mayor is, Mayor Wilson is committed to overnight shelters, and he's got a very aggressive
which is a big change
campaign.
from what we were before.
It is, and it's very needed. So, I think when we talk about public-private partnerships, he's engaged with us. He's engaging with the neighborhood groups. His team is really, I think, working on that one piece specifically, which is great. And so we are seeing, some shifts there, I think.
So when you're looking at, what other things from the, like the Revitalize Portland Coalition, what are some of the engagement or challenges you're facing or trying to push out from a change of policy and, public perception?
Yeah. To stay with homelessness just briefly, we still have on the books in Oregon House Bill 3115, which basically codified that Boise versus Martin decision. I don't want to get too deep, but the Supreme Court overturned that. And so it basically, Oregon has this statute that says if you're going to, regulate public places, so camping overnight,
they have to have a place to go.
They have to have a place to go. But our statute, ours says that reasonable accommodations, it has to be based on a reasonable standard, which of course is
vague,
nearly meaningless, and has been used to sue us to stop enforcement. And again, none of us want to lean in with enforcement, but if you don't have some sort of a backstop and enforcement, you can't stop the proliferation of tents, and you do see people just get swept and move from place to place to place until that is the greatest pathway into treatment and recovery and shelter that I've seen in other cities. So I think it could be really helpful. So anyway, the legislature's looking at potentially amending or repealing that. We're heavily involved with a coalition that's looking into that right now to work on it. Public safety is absolutely critical. I think you see our new district attorney, our Nathan Vasquez. You see our chief of police, Bob Day, both really looking for public-private partnerships, looking for that engagement. So we're seeing, real responsiveness there. The question is, do they have the resources and the officers, and then, the statutes like this 3115 to enact and enforce the laws? Again, I think police have had our public servants, our whole emergency response network has had a real challenge over these last few years. And their recruiting is getting better. I think they're, have gone through a number of performance and training changes. The thing is, if we're at 800 officers and most cities our size are at 15 or 1600,
probably a problem there.
There's a problem there. Yeah. And it's why we don't have as many specialized units as we once had, and et cetera, et cetera.
So then what other kind of policy solutions do you think, with your experience, in terms of trying to change that narrative? I'm not trying to change it. Yeah. The narrative will hopefully change because of some of the actions that happen and some of the results. But what other policy solutions are, you pushing or trying to enlighten elected officials and, just people on the street? This is a direction we need to go?
Well, I think at the top of our list going forward is taxes, like we talked about.
Right.
And I think we think there needs to be a hard look at the pre-K tax as well.
And that's personal taxes as well as business taxes as well.
That's right. And it's at 3%. And it's bringing in a lot of money. And again, you have, I think, valid questions about how that's then being utilized, who it's serving, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are, we try to focus on the things we can specifically change. Let's stop kicking our own goals, right? Like let's turn that around. So the budget conversation is going to be, wild at all levels. I think we just got to stay engaged with the city council, with the Metro Council, and with the county commission on that. Not to, again, get back in the weeds, but, Multnomah County's now trying to put together a new database system around homelessness.
Which is something that's been asked for
years.
And
years. It has been. And the thing lived in another department at one point, and now it's all in-house at Multnomah County. Well, we, worked really hard to get a representative of our coalition as a part of the selection process for that database, and he's an expert in IT, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're trying to lean
And are
in
they
with
open?
help.
Is it open?
They
are now.
They did. We had a very good meeting with Dan Field and the head of purchasing.
So, I mean, we had Deborah Kafori here years ago, and I remember asking, in Shannon Singleton about how are you trying to solve a problem if you don't really know what the problem is, and you don't know what the problem is because there's no data about.
That's right.
If when they just do these blanket policies for a blanket, when they would say homelessness and put it all under there, it's like, is it an affordability? Is it addiction? Is it mental health? It's a component of all three.
That's right.
It's not a one size fits all.
And, even as we stand up overnight shelters, or even as their outreach workers have an interaction with people. Right now, the status quo is not to really collect data, and we're not talking about monitoring people, but we're talking about that population level data you can make good policy decisions on. So I think I'm hopeful. We've at least not gotten a no on some of those issues going forward. There's still big systemic issues that we've got to address with homelessness, though.
Here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of it, I think, from the leadership on top, as you talked about, is there the political will and the leadership on top?
It is.
There's been a pushback about accountability, which has been interesting. And, so you're asking for more tax revenue or extending this out without the accountability component. At least show the accountability, then it's easier to talk about that. Because I don't think there's people who have an issue of, paying some tax. It was, like you said, trying to measure the benefit that we're getting out of it.
That's right.
And just keep throwing money at a problem does not seem to be.
It doesn't.
No.
And these days, dashboards, there's all kinds of tracking, there's all kinds of public transparency stuff they could do to show that. I mean, we it's interesting though, we find that we working with or comparing our agenda to like some homelessness advocate agendas, or particularly service providers, there's way more we agree on than disagree on, which is interesting.
Yes.
And so, I think if you're being funded by the county, you're not going to get out and talk about it a lot, but there's a lot of agreement among leaders, even in the industry, that, it's not an efficient system. They don't have, goals and outcomes in their contracting. I mean, there's a lot that could be improved there. If we, if the county would just kind of do a full overhaul. We think it starts with an audit of all the dollars and where it's going, because we just, we've never seen that kind of line by line outcomes based audit.
And maybe there's a reason why they're pushing against it, because I think it's going to be quite, like you said, they've raised a lot more money than they thought they were, and you would have thought we would have seen better delivery of services or some kind of accountability, and it's just not there.
I mean, there's an element with that. I think on a number of these innovative or these kind of forward-thinking things Portland has tried to do. The new city government, for instance.
Yes.
We push these things in place and then kind of figure out how to manage, mechanize it, et cetera, et cetera. And, the reality is we need that input, and we will. I do think the nature of this conversation around supportive housing services is around political will. And, with conditions as they are now, how would people vote on this tax if it were up for renewal right this moment? I think it would be an open question.
Right.
And so that's kind of the calculus that's being,
figured out now.
Yeah.
Well, I want to, so for people that want to get involved, I highly recommend Revitalize Portland Coalition. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of good work. It's not easy.
Nope.
But we really need to do that. So, and thank you again for joining us on Multifamily Market Watch, and we'll have you again. And I'm hoping that when we sit down and 3-4 years from now, we do a cheer that, hey, we're at an inflection point with the city, and that we're changing. That 2025 is the year that we can look back and say that's when things kind of shifted and we started going in the right direction and not just staying.
I do think this next few months is very critical to what that looks like. So pleasure to be here as always.
Great. So folks, please do get involved when there's an ask, and don't even wait for us to ask. But I think involvement's the key. I think they need to hear from different voices, different people talking about the challenges and where the opportunities are. And if I can do one quick little plug, we're a presenting sponsor for this year's We Believe in Portland cleanup, and it's April 25th. It's where companies can send teams of their own staff. They're meeting up at Providence Park. You just go to webelieveinportland.org. But Revitalize Portland is really proud to be sponsoring that and really helping promote, again, public-private partnership with cleaning up downtown. Well, it's going to have to be everybody getting in this thing together to turn this thing around. So thank you for all your hard work, and we'll see you next time Multifamily Market Watch.
Our entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making HFO the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information. HFO is a member of Global Real Estate Advisors. Learn more at grea.com.